Henry Cejudo retired after his win against Dominic Cruz, but made sure he would stay in the conversation. He's been pretty active on social media, taking jabs at multiple UFC champions and contenders. And the rising star of the UFC, Sean O'Malley's one of his most recent targets. He suffered his first ever loss to Marlon Vera at UFC 252, and ever since then, he has received a ton of backlash. Cejudo hasn't held back either. Let's check it out. Let's start with what happened most recently. Cejudo trolled O'Malley for his controversial split decision win over former title holder Petr Yan in UFC 280. In UFC 282, lightweight star Paddy Pimblett won an even more controversial decision over Jared Gordon. In his tweet, Cejudo suggested that O'Malley face Pimblett next, so that the judge won't know who to rob. O'Malley quickly responded with a comment seemingly taking aim at Cejudo's Mexican heritage. "Shut up and make me a burrito." And Cejudo got the last laugh with his quote tweet to O'Malley's response, saying, "I'll make one for Petr Yan and have the judges give it to you." We all know who won that one. Before that, Cejudo insulted O'Malley, stating that he didn't consider him to be much of a challenge. This was after rising star O'Malley took on top 10 bantamweight contender Pedro Munoz at UFC 276. He was facing a major jump up in competition as he clashed with the first-ranked contender he faced. Although he appeared competitive in the outline, the ending was kind of anticlimactic because their bout was ruled a no contest due to an unintentional eye poke from O'Malley. Former two-division UFC champion Cejudo did not seem to be impressed with Sugar Sean. In an episode of the Triple C and Schmo show, Cejudo trashed O'Malley for talking a big game, but not being able to back it up. He straight up said that Sugar's performance absolutely sucked, and that he thought he was a lot better than he actually is. He continued to say that he had challenged O'Malley to a round, adding that that wouldn't be happening because he doesn't want this smoke. He then went on to compare the match between him and O'Malley to Jake Paul facing John Jones, and mentioned that he would eat that dude alive. Also, he had even said that he aimed to finish off O'Malley within just 2 rounds. He was so confident in his abilities over O'Malley that he wanted to challenge himself more. According to him, he'd been aiming to finish Sugar Sean within 2 rounds, and claimed that O'Malley would never take the fight. Cejudo has been calling for his return to fighting ever since his retirement, so who knows? O'Malley might just be the perfect opponent when the time finally comes. As expected, O'Malley clapped back at the former champ. He said that the two of them should stop talking and make it happen on the 10th of September, calling Cejudo a fat in the same sentence. And of course, Triple C was just as quick to retort with an epic response, referring to O'Malley as Ronald Meth Donald, suggesting that he thinks the bantamweight fighter uses meth. Clearly, both fighters are trying to prove something. They make the time to trade shots on social media and interviews, but are still equally focused on proving themselves. For example, at UFC 276, Cejudo personally approached featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski to take his case for title contention, while O'Malley is eager to prove that he was dominating Pedro Munoz in his last fight, and therefore, people should count it as a win despite the no contest ruling. Moving on, if you think that's it for the duo's savage exchanges, think again. O'Malley called Cejudo fat and drunk, after the latter interrupted the former's UFC 276 post-fight interview in a scene that looked like it came straight out of an episode of The Office. O'Malley was opening the main card at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, in which he accidentally poked Munoz in the eye. Despite the no contest result, O'Malley considered it a win for himself, which was when he was interrupted by Cejudo, who said, "I'd love a tune-up. What do you say? Precious? I'm good to go. When would you want to bend the knee? At what time?" O'Malley continued talking about the incident during the post-fight press conference, calling Cejudo of being fat, drunk, and on drugs, claiming that he was stumbling over things backstage before being escorted out of the building. All this happened in 2022, just a few months ago. But there's more. In November of the same year, O'Malley started a rumor about Cejudo. It stated that he was broke and desperate to unretire. He claimed that he had learned from a source that Cejudo was left with $37 in the bank, which was why he was so willing to do anything to get some money. O'Malley brought up the alleged money issues again later in the same interview on the MMA Hour, while talking about TJ Dillashaw taking shots at his alleged financial situation repeatedly. Is there any truth to those rumors? There might just be, considering that two-time division champion Cejudo has previously admitted that his retirement was a negotiation tactic to get more money, which, unfortunately for him, didn't pan out. The feud between the two has been going on for longer than you might think. Back in 2002, Cejudo took to Twitter to remind O'Malley of his loss against Marlon Vera at UFC 252. He also downplayed the UFC star's potential by claiming that he would never be a bantamweight champion. Here's the tweet he tagged O'Malley in. "You'll never get close to my belt, but you will always be the champ at rolling blunts and ankles. Hashtag bend the knee." And then in the same year, he called Suga out for stealing his pose, also stating that he should be sponsored by Viagra since all he does is go limp. Yikes. Speaking of UFC, let's move on to another star in the business. Hasbulla Magomedov has become an internet sensation through his TikTok videos, where he's often seen with big UFC personalities. He's a member of Khabib Nurmagomedov's team, and his association with the Eagle is pretty well known. Most recently, he went viral for playfully scuffling with Henry Cejudo. Triple C has previously interacted with Mini Khabib quite a few times before, and their most recent interaction baffled the combat sports universe. The former UFC fighter and freestyle wrestler playfully sparred with Mini Khabib, while the little sensation kept on thrashing him. The video uploaded by Triple C joked that he was coming for Hasbulla to settle things once and for all. The social media sensation Magomedov didn't back down from playfully responding to the post, asking Cejudo why he hadn't exposed where he smeared him, and why he had only exposed the part where Cejudo hit him. The video ended with Cejudo sitting on a chair with Magomedov on his lap, throwing punch after punch. Onto, a year before this interaction, Cejudo had joked about fighting Hasbulla. That was back when the then 18-year-old was on a call-out spree and had put Triple C on notice about exchanging blows with him. In one of Hasbulla's posts, Cejudo responded to the challenge and jokingly claimed that he would rip apart the Dagestani. Eventually, he said that he'd be willing to trade barbs with Hasbulla, just because he was always looking for different ways to troll, and also saw the business aspect of the whole deal if it ever ended up happening. Interacting with Hasbulla on social media gained Cejudo roughly 15,000 followers, which speaks quite a bit about the Dagestani's influence on the internet. And it seems like Cejudo fully understands that. At the time, he said that he saw Hasbulla becoming a huge, recognizable public figure all over the world. He added that if Hasbulla played his cards, he might become one of the most recognized faces in the world. And when all this was going on, Alexander Volkanovski had to give his 2 cents on the matter because he never holds back from throwing shade at Cejudo. When he suggested a fight between Hasbulla and Triple C, Cejudo was quick to note that competing against Hasbulla would still be more challenging than fighting against Volkanovski. More importantly, Cejudo isn't the only UFC star Hasbulla has interacted with. He also has links with Makhachev, who he announced he would be supporting in his bid to become the lightweight champion by beating Charles Oliveira in the UFC 280 main event. Just before his first public UFC appearance came up, Hasbulla flew to Dubai, where he met with some of his friends from the UFC. Unfortunately though, not everyone's a fan. UFC icon Conor McGregor has been saying some pretty harsh things about him as of late, and we're guessing that Hasbulla working with 2 of his enemies, Khabib and Islam, doesn't help. Maybe he sticks to making funny videos, because UFC might be a step too big for him. Finally, just in case you aren't familiar with the reasons behind Hasbulla's success, we've got you covered with that information too. Despite his small stature, Hasbulla boasts a pretty big personality and a huge online fan base with over 3 million followers on Instagram. Most recently, the online sensation made headlines after he took a trip to Australia as part of his international tour. This little superstar hails from Makhachkala in the Russian Federation. He became an online sensation back in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic after his videos on TikTok went viral. He then started to become the subject of thousands of memes, tweets, and posts. Although not formally affiliated, was widely associated with the UFC community after one of his most viral videos reenacting a weigh-in of UFC champion Khabib Nurmagomedov went viral. And just a few months later, the duo started to regularly create content together. More recently, Mini Khabib took to Instagram to publicly confirm that he had signed a 5-year contract with the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and that details would be revealed soon. He also took the opportunity to advertise the Hasbulla Fight Kit, while also expressing his gratitude to Dana White, Khabib Nurmagomedov, and everyone who helped him get the contract. And that's a wrap for this video. Do you think Cejudo is going to be returning to the ring anytime soon? Also, what are your thoughts on Hasbulla finally signing with UFC and working with some of the biggest stars in the business? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.